Hi everyone, nice to see you all here today, gathered for another one of our webinars. Maybe I'll wait just a second longer to gather everyone here. And yeah, I think we're good. So today we are going to be talking about Awario and looking for your audience, researching your market, and all the crazy stuff that you can do with social listening. And overall, we could name this webinar as using social listening to analyze your audience or analyze your market. As always, I'm your host, Anna, the content manager in Awario, and together I'm here with Dmitry. Dmitry, could you introduce yourself, please, to our lovely guest?
Sure. Hi there, I'm Dmitry. I'm the head of customer success team here at Awario, and I'll be helping Anna explain all the peculiarities of our topic today.
Exactly. Without Dmitry, we wouldn't be able to figure out anything like that. I'm kidding, of course. Awario is very
She's
easy.
not kidding.
Okay. Not to hurt your ego or anything. Yeah. Well, before we start talking about using Awario for all these wonderful things, I just wanted to mention that we do have a little surprise, or maybe if you saw our previous webinars, it won't be a surprise to you. For everyone who stays with us till the end of this webinar, which will take about 20-30 minutes, I expect, depending on how many questions you might have. So to everyone, we will give a special code that you can send to our customer care team in the chat and get a super extended free trial. So you'll get more time to play with Awario and more options and more settings to play with it, and all of that without paying even a single dime. So stick around till the end if you want to get this special code. Okay, so what are we talking about today? We are talking about market research, but in particular, this will be the points we will cover. Dmitry will explain how to set up Awario for market research, what alerts do you need and stuff like that, how to see if this market is saturated or not, how to get feedback for maybe products you're planning or some changes to your offers and products that you might be planning to introduce, how to find customer demands, pains, and wishes. In other words, anything that your customer wants, or maybe like a specific niche of the market that is not saturated by your competitors yet, and how to find out more about your customers, get some insight into their persona, gather demographic data, or maybe learn where they hang out online and stuff like that. And of course, there would be no sense in explaining all of that if we didn't have some kind of an example to jump off on. And we kind of made up this special example. So for the use case, so our case looks like that. Imagine there is a startup, a company that wants to develop an app for habit tracking, life organization, basically like a productivity app. I don't know, you might be using like Notion or something else to do this already. So they want to kind of introduce a product that will be better and more attractive to the customers than anything that already exists. And what they want to know? They want to know what people don't have in existing options, why existing options are not good enough for them, who their potential customers are, so who they want to market and sell their app to, and who are their biggest competitors. And let me tell you, all of these could be answered, all these questions, all these problems could be answered and solved by Awario, by social listening. And today we will explain how to do it, actually. Yeah, so I guess we will start with Dmitry. And my first question is, we probably need to start somewhere. And usually the first step is to get the feel of the market, to understand how big is this niche, how popular is this product, can be popular or already like its alternative. And the first thing is to set up kind of a product alert, yeah? Kind of an alert that will show us how much of this offer is already on the market. So what should we do?
Indeed. So let me re-grab the screen from you then.
Yeah, do
that would
please.
be for the best. One moment. Okay. I hope it's visible now.
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. So indeed, as Anna mentioned, the first step would be to create what we would call a product alert. Essentially, an alert where you would track the niche you plan to occupy in a very general sense, in a very generic sort of way, to just get a feel for what's being said, what the sentiment is, how many people are talking, where they are, what language they use, and so on and so forth. On the screen I'm sharing now, there is just an alert for that called Habit Tracker right there. You can see it had a while to run, so it has quite a few results. And essentially what you would be looking for are the mentions themselves, first and foremost, to just see what people are saying in general. Of course, there are a lot of mentions here, and you would need to spend a bit of time reading. But for purposes of this webinar, we have, of course, already read quite a bit and put out some mentions that we think a prospective habit tracker developer would find useful. So it would be things like this. People asking what habit trackers they use. It's less about this particular mention and more about whatever answers this person would get. What people are saying in general, what clues you can pick up from any of those posts, like, do you need to make your app more friendly to people with ADHD, for example, or do you maybe need easier to follow interface? Maybe you need to gamify it to make people actually stick with your product, or maybe you need something else. Basically, it will all start with this kind of alert, where you just track your niche in general, see what's being said, and of course, you would also then take a gander at the stats to understand who, how much, where, when, and so on. All of those initial insights would be very beneficial.
So, Dmitry, could you walk us through the settings and show what do we need to put into the settings to get an alert like that?
Sure. In fact, we'll go right through the habit tracker search. The setup like that is actually pretty simple. You don't need to reinvent the wheel here. The key point here is to use what we call industry keywords. Basically, whatever vocabulary you think people would use to refer to a product you want to develop, or service, of course. In our case, it's really simple. It's just words like habit tracking app, or phrases rather, productivity app, habit app, relevant hashtag, like literally the same thing, but in hashtag form. And if you could come up with any other things, you can always add them here. Or if you happen to see a mention somewhere, somehow, where you've seen some peculiar way to reference your niche, you are more than free to go back to that setup and just add more words. Nothing else is really needed here besides those words. You have some extra filters you could utilize. If you are sure there would be some irrelevant words popping in, you can always add them to excluded keywords list. If you're interested in a particular location, you can always define it via language or location. But generally speaking, you would just need a set of keywords that refers to your niche. You're muted, Dan.
Yeah, great. And as you see, we didn't set up any advanced alert settings, but of course, I expect if you are focusing on specific country, language, or maybe social media platform, you could do that.
Yeah, absolutely. If you feel like you need to tweak anything, you are more than free to do that. But again, generally speaking, there is no need. Just get the keywords, because the opinions matter from everywhere, pretty much.
So we already saw the place you can get some ideas for your product, or like some ideas for marketing your product. For example, when you showed us mentions and pointed out that there were some mentions of ADHD or habit trackers for people with ADHD, we can assume that it's kind of an untapped market, and we could market this app for people with like ADHD, ADD primarily, and that would be a unique spin on this product. I wanted to ask you where to look if I want to just find out how many people are interested in a product like that, in a habit tracker, and how they feel about it, you know, what emotions they usually express when talking about it.
Mhm. You would turn to the stats in that same alert. Basically, if you want to get a general feel for how many people there are that express some sort of interest in habit tracking, you can turn to stats and look, for example, right here to the volume of mentions part. Basically, it says that in last week, about 2,000 mentions of habit tracker in some way or another popped up. It's important to note that this is by no means 100% accurate necessarily. It's just, again, for general feel. So you can assume that at least this many people would be interested among the platforms we have here. Of course, you can extend it and have it go back a bit more. Let's say last 30 days is probably a bit more representative. And there we have quite a bit more mentions, with peaks even at specific points in time. So yeah, this is a rough general idea into how many people might be interested or might be discussing this segment at all. And speaking of emotions, of course, that would be for the second widget you see on the dashboard, for the sentiment analysis, whether the mention is more positive, whether it's more negative, or maybe it's somewhere in between. We can see that the percentage of negative mentions is actually very low, meaning people are generally feeling all right about productivity apps. It's not overwhelmingly positive either. So people are mostly fine with the idea, is the conclusion I can draw from here. They're not necessarily thrilled, they won't necessarily hate it, they're all right with it, which is good enough.
Yeah, probably people are hoping for like changing their life for the better. That's why it's a bit more positive than negative.
Yeah.
Not a bit, actually, quite a lot more positive and negative, but overall it's just like a helping tool. So there are no strong emotions about productivity apps. And I wanted to ask you about topic cloud. So we already mentioned that you can go look at the specific conversations about productivity apps or the products that you're trying to analyze. But this topic cloud shows us like the most popular phrases, right?
Indeed. Basically, what it does is it takes words, phrases, hashtags, whatever else that people use together with your keywords, in our case, all of those habit tracker related words. And this lets us know what is actually being discussed without you necessarily needing to go and plow through everything, read, understand. You'd kind of have to do that anyway, but this is just a quick jump start. So, of course, Notion pops up here, very good example from before. Hashtag habit tracker, words for downloading something, word routine, which is undoubtedly related to tracking an app like that. And the best part is you can click on any of those and just get a jump start on whatever is being said. So if I click on Notion here, for example, I will see the mentions of habit tracker or any other phrases that also happen to mention Notion, which might be your cue to go on and read whatever people have to say. And perhaps there are some clues you can pick up to design your own app. Hurdles you can avoid or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if there is a brand that really dominates your niche or industry you're trying to go into or already exist in, it's a good example that this will pop up on a topic cloud because it's just mentioned so many times in the conversations in this industry, like Notion.
Yeah.
And speaking of like other brands and competitors, I think that diving into their mentions and diving into their audience is also a good way to research the market. First of all, of course, we can check share of voice. If you could be so kind, Dmitry, to show us. Yeah, exactly. So we have 3 apps. They're all targeted at like habit tracking and productivity. And we can see that there is one that is overwhelmingly more popular and famous and more talked about than the other 2. So we already see that their share of voice online is a lot bigger than other apps in this category. Yeah, and we can, of course, go to our mentions back to habit trackers and check for other competitors, or just from your general research, you can set up competitor alerts and check on your competitors, check their mentions, see who their audience is and what it talks about. Exactly. We did a whole webinar on competitor analysis and competitor research. That's why I'm not diving into it a lot today. But if you're curious, on our YouTube, once we are finished, you can check this one as well, right on our YouTube channel. So I think you will be able to gather more about competitor analysis and what to do with all the competitors with the Awario. Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is audience analysis. So we know now that, for example, the market that we want to tap into is quite saturated, not that much. There are some unique qualities in apps that people are looking for, and it seems like there are no offers for these qualities. For example, habit tracker for people with ADHD or productivity apps for people with ADHD. Yeah. And we know that there are some competitors on the market who are not tapping into this niche yet. Otherwise, they would be heavily mentioned when talking about like apps for people with ADHD. So how do we know like what kind of people we want to market to? Can we get some data on them? Can we get some insights?
Yeah, we actually can. And again, we will return to our general search habit tracker, and we will once again jump back to the dashboard. You can see that Awario can provide you with some demographic stats like gender, like age brackets, where they come from geographically. We can see the US is very saturated on this map compared to the rest of the world. What language they use will also help us understand the geography that is not necessarily easy to see here. For example, Thai, there is a lot of Thai mentions about habit tracking. So perhaps this is a market you could look into. So yeah, those are the main stats you would use, you would look at rather to understand who your potential users are, who in general just talks about habit tracking or any of your particular competitors. You can switch, for example, to Habitica and have a look at their audience. Is it the same? Is it different? There is overlap. We can see, again, the states are big. Gender spread seems comparable. Ages don't seem as comparable, actually, from memory, and languages definitely do not seem very comparable. So yeah, there is space enough for you, for your hypothetical habit tracking app. And this is what Awario will help you understand. If you create the right searches, of course, like competitive searches, general search, and so on.
Yeah, and of course, all these insights can be very valuable. For example, the language insights could point you into in what languages do you want your interface to be? What languages do you want to prioritize when you translate your app from English to like some other language? Yeah, exactly. Or for Habitica, you know, Japanese was one of the main languages. Yeah. I wonder if they even have a Japanese version of the app, you know? Or like sources can show you where you want to promote this app. If like Instagram is a big part of it, then you might want to like make a very visually appealing profile on Instagram and invest in some ads or something like that. Or if YouTube is very good for you, then, you know, collaborate with influencers on YouTube and stuff like that. So we have some questions in the chat that I would like to tackle. The first one is from Anastasia. She asked, can Awario show me demographic data for my audience? Well, we already kind of covered that, yeah? So you can check demographic data in the dashboard, and there is a ton of insights, and you can use them for your marketing.
Yeah, there is not much else to add here.
Yeah. There is another question from Yui or UI. Will there be the detailed demographic data on Awario in the future? Well, I can tell you that we are always trying to expand our data, our insights, and our analytics, and we are always working on something. So there will be more and more additions to the dashboard. And if you have like specific requests, what kind of data you would like to see, like, I don't know, maybe interest or something like that, you can always contact our customer care team, and it's good to have the input of our users. Right,
let us know. That's right. Just let us know, and we'll pass it to whoever needs to see that kind of feedback.
Yeah. For now, I see that you're specifically interested in geographic data. For now, Awario analyzes locations up to the city. So you are able to see in which cities, like your product is mentioned the most, or in which states, in which counties, or like UK and countries like that. So we are pretty specific with that, but we will always try to do even more specific. And also there is a question about UI. Will Awario use ChatGPT or AI technology in upcoming time? Well, I think, yeah, we're already using some sophisticated algorithms and kind of like machine learning adjacent stuff for our analytics. So I think, yeah, if there is an opportunity to combine Awario and AI technologies, we will always hop onto that. But I'm afraid I can't tell you more in the future because it would be an industry secret.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think we have any questions. And as I promised, a surprise I will show you right now.
Grab it back.
Yeah, exactly. The most important part of our webinar, perhaps. So as I mentioned, we do have a code that you can write on our website on awario.com in the support chat, not on YouTube, on the website. It's Awario Webinar 2, and you can get an extended free trial just with that code. You don't need to like pay anything, connect your credit card or debit card. You don't need to put any like long application information. You just can contact us on the website, write this code, Awario Webinar 2, and we will hook you up with the free trial where you'll get more settings, more analytics, more opportunities to play with Awario, and more time to play with Awario. Okay. Thank you so much, Dmitry, for today's consultation, for today's webinar. I hope it was very useful. And of course, if you have any questions about how to use Awario for a specific use case or how it can help with your marketing or product strategy, you can write it in the comments on YouTube, and we will maybe dedicate a webinar to this question.
Yeah. Or if you have any other general questions, you are more than welcome to go to our website and address this to me and my team, and we'll get to you with whatever answer you were looking for.
Exactly. And of course, we have a usual free trial, which you can use anytime without the code. Just go to awario.com and sign up. It takes less than a minute, I think. And there is also a link in the bio of this video. Thank you so much for being with us here today. And I think that's the end. Goodbye and have a good rest of the day.
See you all. Have a good evening or day. Bye-bye.
Bye.